Welcome back to DHN. I'm Wade Teamer. And I'm also in a bit of a pickle, guys. Yes, you read this correctly. I have sold my Vechain for another asset. Now, if you're new here, may not care, even why that's shocking. But long-time viewers, listeners, you know what? It's probably why you clicked on the video. Don't worry, I'm gonna explain it to you because I'm still not 100% sure on the move. So this video is gonna be part comparison and part me asking you what you would do in this situation. Gonna give you the two coins. I'm gonna lay out both sides of the argument here. All right? Because what I want to do going forward is make sure that we pay attention to what's going on locally in the US. Yeah, we may not be the fastest movers when it comes to the innovation on top of these technologies, but the list of documentation, the PDFs that come out, the news articles, the tokenization of financial products by major players, the discussion is accelerating here in the United States. So my point going forward with the channel is to bring our attention a bit more local so that way we don't miss out when they begin to hit that switch. Because you know how they do it over here, ladies and gentlemen. They'll flip something on us here in the United States, not tell us about it, and all of a sudden it's all over the news, and now we got to rush in line and wait in line to get it. When if we would have had our eyes in the right places, we wouldn't have had to stand in line. So that's kind of what I'm getting at here, guys. Let me not waste no more time because like I said, we know one asset. It's Vechain. Talked about it for a long time. But this asset here, Constellation DAG. Constellation DAG is the asset that I've sold my Vechain for, and we haven't talked about DAG in almost 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. I have a video on DAG. It's from 2 years ago. I'm going to share it with you after we have this discussion, but it's a very strong reason why I picked this particular asset. And then if you look at the price, which isn't the most important aspect here, it's really tough, right? really tough here. But getting back to the point of keeping everything local, all right? Before I made this decision, I had to go back into the weeds a bit for both of these assets. For example, we know recently Vechain has leaned into their relationship with the UFC. They've also leaned into the real world asset narrative with the incorporation of the NFC chips within the boxing gloves, which I think is an amazing advancement, super cool, right? But what's the real world impact there? That's really only going to benefit the fighters. The fans of UFC won't even truly benefit from that unless they dig that deep. So maybe you're aiming at your core fighter fans, which I understand. I get that. Total global viewership, 900 million plus. I understand that. But one, we're trying to keep local here. And locally, there's another 3-letter organization running viewership right now. 2023, 17.9 million viewers per NFL game compared to 1.2 million viewers per fight. And then you have to consider pay-per-view. These numbers matter, ladies and gentlemen. These numbers matter, especially for our localization argument here. And then on top of that, after the UFC situation, they leaned into MotoGP, developing NFTs with them. Again, that's another sport, spectator sport, that is more popular outside of the US, to my understanding. All right. And then on top of that, yes, they launched their Vorge platform, software as a service that allows developers to come and build on Vechain. They can build EVM compatible networks, things like that. I understand that. This, again, though, is focused more so at the developer on a blockchain and not the end user, not retail. So let's talk about some of the use cases that would be targeted at retail. These are very good. Don't get me wrong. The digital NFTs, the incorporation of the NFC technology with the My Story, the Receipt project, which incorporates the food track and trace. Very good applications. Again, don't get me wrong, but the majority of this activity is taking place overseas for now, which brings me up to the difficult point of the argument for Vechain, because on top of all of this, you have to consider their relationship with two very important groups here. DNV is one of their biggest consultants, alongside the Boston Consulting Group, which I really just discovered has an entire digital technology development division. So very intriguing. This BCGX, it's a lot focused in their US market, which is another compelling situation. DNV, much the same story. This is a global consulting firm with locations all over the place. Both of these companies combined have over 100 years of experience, and they're putting all of it into the digital transition. And it does line up with what Vechain has been doing for years, especially looking at that pretty image of that boat there, the maritime industry, which is also why I think Vechain made that move to San Marino to be as close to the coast as possible. So I get that. But as far as putting something to the market, neither one of these companies have done it. Well, DNV has, but the application, the use case is more so not US based. So that's the point of the argument that I'm leaning into here. I'm making this decision to sell my Vechain for Constellation because I do not want us to miss the local race. And when it comes to the local race, ladies and gentlemen, man, I am impressed with Constellation because they now have hardware. And I say now have because 2 years ago, again, none of this stuff. When I connect you to the other Constellation DAG video, you'll see their website there. It didn't look like this. So that's another reason why I follow the OG coins or the projects that some like to call dinosaurs, because I follow experience. I don't see why you wouldn't want to follow experience. Take a look at this ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna lay it all out for you. But another reason why I like Constellation is because they're using a very innovative version of the technology that we're familiar with. So Vechain uses proof of authority, and we've covered that consensus, how it works. You're basically putting your name into the network, and that controls your governance, simply. Constellation takes a completely different approach entirely, ladies and gentlemen, and it'll actually expand your knowledge base on crypto and blockchain. Because you have blockchains, you have DLTs, but then you also have graphs. There's a hash graph, and Constellation uses the hypergraph. Now, I'm not going to describe this word for word here. I'm just going to share with you the explanation that I give someone off the street and they ask me about it. Yes, the conversation does come up. Blockchains go left to right. A DLT will go north to south, up and down, right? Graphs, they cover all those angles. So think of it like chess pieces. Pawns, forward, backwards. Your horse, knight, I called it a horse. Your knight, can make that L shape. That's your DLT, pawn being the blockchain. But the hash graph, that's your queen. She can do all the patterns. Your hypergraphs, your acyclic graphs, as they describe it here, they can move in multiple directions. So that lends more towards the ability to scale fast and maintain security. Speed will come in its own time, but handling 2 out of 3 of that blockchain trilemma, guys, and that's what, that's something that you should look into if you're curious about blockchain, just, one of those nuanced elements. But that graph structure is unique, and that's what's going to give the projects that use it longevity. Because with blockchains, you have congestion issues. With DLT, you may have a security issue. But the graph being more flexible allows you to really hone in on a security aspect, hone in on a speed aspect. Up until this point, I've only seen 2 projects make use of this graph type of setup, type of architecture, Hedera and now Constellation, which is another reason why I'm bringing this asset to your attention. Now, outside of the technicals, let's dig a little bit deeper. We know we all like to talk about the partnerships, who they're working with, what they're building with. Well, see, Constellation is one of those unique assets. And again, keeping to this new mission of keeping everything local. Well, they're tied up with some pretty big players, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm just going to spit it out. We're talking about the U.S. government. Directly, U.S. government. This trusted by the Department of Defense. We enable developers to build application-specific blockchains cater to the use cases that focus on big data. But on top of this, guys, you can see I was reading already. They have developed their relationship with the U.S. government over the last few years. Now, initially, what brought me into Constellation was hearing about there's the Air Force out here working with a particular blockchain. And I'm like, no way, not this early. This was that blockchain. Now, of course, 2 years ago, you see that, you read that, and you're like, okay, we'll see how it turns out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I was looking at here. So let me read this to you. The federal government is dealing with rampant amounts of data and have invested heavily into existing data management solutions and systems. These centralized systems are too expensive and not fast enough to process, validate, and manage the volumes of data required for making quick decisions in the field without significant security risk. There are growing needs to create an evolved data strategy specifically around multi-domain command and control to interoperate legacy system data with cloud infrastructure data. Our objective is to offer the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security an easy-to-integrate developer tool that will enable these systems to instantaneously process, validate, and secure data as it is being created and communicated across networks. Guys, when I did the video a couple years ago, I tied it into a bill focused on defense that called for this very same thing. And if we continue to scroll down here, guys, this is something you don't see in crypto. You don't. It was the main argument with the whole Hedera and BlackRock situation. Let us see the proof, and I'm not discrediting that, but this is the proof. Let's read here. The unique Constellation blockchain for big data technology has significant potential to help Air Force Cybersecurity and the 618 Air Operations Center with commercial partners mission transaction interactions, verifications by mitigating security risk of attack points like servers, cloud storage, and centrally hosted access control systems that are either exposed to hacking and or spoofing activities. The foreseeable result was successfully thwart spoofing attacks and intercepting and replacing existing data streams with data streams from a hostile agent or adds fraudulent information to the existing data stream. So where DAG is positioning itself is right in the middle of the US cyber defense strategy. And that's something that we're not gonna see be held up by an SEC or a CFTC. That's another angle that I'm going to be showing you guys as well. There are going to be assets in this market that will benefit from the fact that Ripple is being pressed, that Ethereum is being pressed by these governing bodies, because what it's going to do, it opens the door for other mediums to be explored through blockchain. That's why you don't see things like this get in the way of blockchain gaming. You're not seeing a regulatory sparring match when we talk about global trade. It's also not happening when we discuss things like green energies, renewable technologies, the environment, energy web. You don't see that type of discussion. Constellation DAG, again, positioning itself in that U.S. defense, cyber defense initiative, their plans, and you can see key partners here, right? That's going to give it a major advantage, ladies and gentlemen. And again, they've been working for years on this. And you can see that there are more letters of support outside of that one from the Air Force. This one down here, the U.S. Transcom letter of support, that's actually the story that I reported on a couple years back. Great to see that went through, right? But there's a little bit more to the story when it comes to Constellation, guys, because something else that they also have, hardware. Now this right here is putting your foot on the ground if I've ever seen it. So simply start counting your foot traffic. Meet the world's first thermal sensing battery operated people counter. Grow your retail business by understanding your in-store traffic, peak hours, conversion rates, and marketing effectiveness. So I don't know if you guys heard a few months back, I believe it was Wendy's. They introduced dynamic pricing. You want to know where they got the gumption for that? They were monitoring foot traffic. They were monitoring traffic in and out of the restaurant, and they realized at certain times of the day, we get more people. Which means we can charge more, right? Peak rates, lunch, rush hour, those type of things. So these types of technologies, database, data-driven hardware right here, allows for more businesses to do that same thing. Now, it won't manifest as dynamic pricing. I wouldn't expect that. But I've worked in many malls, which they still exist. But I've worked in many malls, many retail stores. You guys know that, retail background. And I can tell you, every meeting, whether it be every other week or every month, was centered around how much we can bring, how much more people we can bring in the store. That's your lifeblood. If you're in retail, that's your lifeblood. So if there is a device that you can just stick out of viewpoint to give you more data to improve your numbers at the end of the day, they're gonna come rushing for this thing. It's very obvious, guys. But going into the weeds even further, all right? If you really want to go even deeper, ladies and gentlemen, you can check out their Medium. It takes you back through the history. And this one was the most recent. Iron Spider, a universal blockchain toolkit for the U.S. federal government. Now, they did an entire video on their YouTube channel, which is another thing. they've been pumping out content, lots of content. And that's another important factor that we need to pay attention to with these projects, especially when it comes to utility driven projects. They're showing their utility now, and that's a good sign that you want to see. But they wrote down, breakdown, and some key takeaways, right? U.S. Air Force and 618 AOC have requested an end-to-end data security solution using blockchain encryption and hosted decentralization. Who is the 618 AOC? According to their website, the 618th Air Operations Center is the Department of Defense's largest air operations center. They serve as Air Mobility Command's expert when planning, tasking, executing, and assessing mobility missions. The AOC provides unrivaled command and control across the full spectrum of mobility operations to include airlift, air refueling, aeromedical evacuation, and the global mobility support system. Commanding a fleet of nearly 1,100 mobility aircraft, the 618 provides warfighters downrange with the mobility support they need to ensure mission success. So that's the aim here. What is the solution? Well, that's the Iron Spider. They say solving this need requires laying a foundation for the transition to a big data cloud infrastructure using Constellation's unique, scalable, secure, end-to-end multi-smart contract and big data blockchain solution. Constellation Network, along with Kinami, a secure decentralized data storage provider, and a few additional partners, have created the Universal Blockchain Toolkit project named Iron Spider. Spider standing for secure, peer-to-peer, immutable data resilience. And we're all literally in on the ground floor of a monumental effort, a Web3 enabled effort from the Department of Defense. Now, I'll leave a link to this article down in the as the pinned comment, I promise. But it goes into explaining some of the technical advantages that Constellation has. Now, I really don't want to go too deep in this particular video. You know, in the coming weeks, guys, I can take you there. But I really just wanted to know if this decision was sound. Because by comparison, yes, Vechain has the fight market. Vechain has the sustainability, environmental side. They also have two of the biggest consulting firms, tech consulting firms in the world behind them. But my problem is, how much can we guarantee that they push something to market? Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I could be completely wrong here. We could very well, 2 weeks from the time that this video goes up, from when you see this video, that they could make an announcement, hey, BCGX is using Vechain in the United States for such and such. That could very well happen. But I'm tending to believe that we'll hear something about this project first as opposed to Vechain. It's just a feeling. It really is. Currently, at this point, I can't, give you any numbers, but for the sake of bringing things back local, I think this decision is sound. But again, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about this decision? And then look at the price point. At this price point here, what else are you going to do? Everything's moving down. They're going to be at the same level pretty soon. But let's look at this market cap here. This is something. $3 billion fully diluted, right? $3 billion market cap, $2 billion. Right now, fully diluted for DAG, 139 million, sitting at 108 million currently. It's a lot of room to grow here. Again, this video, not every video, I need to go deep into the trenches. That time will come. As a matter of fact, that's what I got an entire second channel for that I will be posting on. Trust me. Sorry. I know it's been a while. But I really just wanted to get your thoughts on this, guys. It was something that was plaguing me all day. Again, if you're looking to pick up either one of these cryptos, one of our channel partners, Uphold, yeah, that's a place that you can get it. That's where I'm getting my crypto from. Link to that will be down in the description. Also, after I get that crypto on Uphold, I move it to my hardware wallet, which is the SafePal S1. They're a channel partner as well. So yes, I do get compensated if you use either link in the description. I want to thank you in advance. With that, it's time for the best part. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.